Hi, everybody, and welcome to the Friday edition of Moohead Radio. I'm your host, the big and furry bovine. Joining me in this episode of the program is Brian and Derek Frisbee, he of Derek Frisbee fame. And anybody else who wants to join the panel, feel free.
I guess you could say that.
Right. It's right by the description of the show. If you're watching this on YouTube, just look under description and there's a link there. That'll get you right into the studio. And then, if I know you, you get in. If I don't know you, you're going to have to credentialize yourself somehow. I'm not sure how that would work. All right. So we had a lot to talk about today, and I'm going to start this in a different direction. And then kind of let things kind of flow into the whole football game. Hi, how you doing? This story really concerns me for people in Northeast Ohio who have watched Fox Sports Ohio and Sports Time Ohio. Those channels are not owned by Fox. I think they were sold to Sinclair Broadcasting, the Republican behemoth of broadcasters. Sinclair was really funny. Sinclair got their start on UHF radio station or television stations that were doing like infomercials all day. And I mean, that when UHF TV was just like zippity doo-dah, and they kind of have built themselves up since into this big, prolific monolith. And so in 2019, they purchased all the Fox Sports channels, including Sports Ohio and Sports Time Ohio. And they have rebranded themselves as Bally Sports. I mean, in what has to be one of the most disgusting things I have heard, a group monolithic broadcasting firm brands their products named after casino gambling establishments. When in every sport there is an abhorrence of this, it doesn't seem to matter to the people at Sinclair. This will affect, of course, the cable homes of the Cavs and the Indians. The 10-year agreement, $85 million in Sinclair's pocket. Money talks, bullshit walks. So right off the bat, like everything else that's cockamamie, I don't know why in the hell you would want to brand a sports network tied into gambling establishments when I've been fighting that my whole podcasting career, early on, especially when every single one of these offshore, gambling companies came after me saying, hey, we'll pay you this much. And it's like, dude, you couldn't pay me enough.
So do you support sports gambling then or no?
Something, I believe that people have the right to do with their money what they want to do with their money. I'm not going to sit here and tell you. I mean, I would never gamble on something that I think is already fixed. I get no kicks out of that shit. But there are a lot of people who live and die by point spread and who gamble.
Doesn't thrill me at all. So tell me why should it prove?
I get a kick out of you. It's not that I have anything. It's so much like so many other things.
FS1 does have a gambling centric show though, with Clay Travis and
yes,
I forget who else is on that show.
But this totally, instead of blurring it, there is no distinction now between these things, and it's troubling to me. And and it's also troubling to me when I'm watching a football game on Fox and they're doing promos for WWE in the same vein. And the announcers who are calling the NFL football game sit there and say, hey, don't miss that tomorrow. And it's like, oh my God, that's not a sport.
They paid a ton of money for that.
Yeah, I know, but it's not a fucking sport.
Sports entertainment.
I know. But at any rate, so if you start seeing your channel not say Fox Sports Ohio, don't worry. It's been taken over by the gambling and gaming establishment. That's number one. Number two, stupid is as stupid does. And here's your headline: Church patriarch dies from COVID-19 after leading open casket funeral of bishop killed by the virus. I don't know how much believing some people, before they actually believe, what is the deal? How much does it take to get people to understand that there's a problem here? Well, he was the head of the Serbian Orthodox Church, 90 years old.
The guy who died was 90?
Yeah, the guy who died, not the original guy, the guy who presided over the open casket funeral was 90 years old.
He was at risk, so he knew he was at
that age.
Age.
Everybody there knew or cared. Died in a Belgrade hospital after contracting COVID. On November 1st, he had...
Well, there's your problem right there. He's in Serbia.
Yeah, well, you know what the problem
This isn't, it's not like he died in a U.S. hospital.
No.
Or got U.S. treatment for COVID. So
people are people, so why should it be? I mean, this is not a U.S. against them kind of thing. This is there are pictures, and nobody was wearing masks. They were all jammed together in a room. So it's not just him. There's a bunch of people who got COVID at that. So but again, these are reminders.
But hey, Governor Newsom opened up strip clubs for you.
Oh,
Can't go to church, but you can go to the strip club.
All right, and then there's this. Here's what you call a 180 in the world of sports. Headline: Andrea Adelson, ESPN senior writer, 2:03 p.m. Eastern Time. It says, and that's 2:03. All right, they have redone the story. After receiving clarity from the state on new coronavirus safety guidelines, Pitt on Friday said players would be outfitted with face coverings, but not required to wear them against Virginia Tech. It was reported first thing earlier this morning that they would be required to wear them in a football game, which I was like, why are you playing the fucking game if you're going to play it with masks on? I mean, why don't you put scuba gear on and not give them any oxygen? But the new guidance from the office of Pennsylvania Governor Tom Wolf states the football players wearing masks during games would likely create a medical issue, making them exempt. However, people keep changing their mind about this stuff. But one thing is apparent. COVID is encroaching on college football in a major, major kind of way. All right. Washington State, Stanford canceled due to Washington State's COVID-19 issues. We're seeing this all over the place.
OSU last week.
And, NFL teams, and then the Cleveland Browns, most notably, we will transition into speaking about our team, really got clobbered with Myles Garrett going down to the disease. When I heard that he was sick, and I don't understand how you could possibly get sick in this environment and have symptoms that he was having and not have COVID based upon how much of it is out there and the type of alleged quarantining the NFL is doing. The NFL now is cracked down, by the way. As if
thanks to the fucking Raiders.
Yeah, well, it's thanks to not taking this thing seriously in the first place, and it's just the thing that was just going to go away.
The Titans at the beginning of the year, and then the fucking Raiders in the middle of the year.
Once you're ass deep in this, you're neck deep in by the time you look a second time. That's the bottom line. The Cleveland Browns now have to play perhaps 2 games, but definitely this 1 game without the only guy on their team who can rush the passer. This is going to hurt the Cleveland Browns immeasurably. against a quarterback who has thrown as many interceptions as he has touchdown receptions this year. A quarterback who has been sacked 35 times this year. All right? And we're going in with a defensive line, with the exception of Myles Garrett, who hasn't done jack shit this year in pressuring the quarterback. So this definitely is what Cleveland is talking about right now. And Kevin Stefanski was hit over the head by the media about this. And of course, he had nothing to say about this. When did Garrett first report symptoms? Can't get into the specifics. Maybe we shouldn't.
But remember that he was in quarantine on Monday.
Oh yeah, I mean he was.
So he wouldn't have fucking known.
Well, he was sick. I mean, we're not talking about a guy who just tested positive. We're talking about a guy who was totally symptomatically ill. I don't know what took so long to get a positive test back on him. I have no idea.
Might have had a false negative. They might have got a false negative test.
Well, you would think that for athletes, they're doing more than just rapid result tests. I hope they're doing throat swabs. But at any rate, Stefanski, I would not speculate whether he'll be back for next week's game. They were asking him all kinds of questions about this, on if a player has to be out of the facility for at least 10 days from the moment symptoms are reported, and he doesn't know. I mean, Stefanski isn't paid to know all of these guidelines. He's paid to coach and motivate the football team.
It's Barry and his staff that are in charge of taking care of all of that.
That's right, and that's the way it should be. I mean, the coach is the coach, and you have people who are administrative people who dot the I's and cross the T's. Is Jack Conklin and Cody Parkey on track to return tomorrow? We are hopeful. Is there an update when Chris Hubbard and Andy Janovich may be able to return? No, nothing of note yet. That's the quote from Stefanski. On if Keller's injury is the same as last week, or if it is something new. I think he is Thor. I'm sorry. I think he is sore. That's more like it. He practiced, so we'll see as the next couple of days.
Odin!
I am so sore. No, that's my story of the day. That'll take me to my anecdote, Derek. Okay, and then we can go to your anecdote. Okay, we're doing this in a methodical kind of way. Gay guy goes to a party. I know this is inappropriate, folks, but you know something? Stand-up comedy says that I can say whatever the fuck I want. It's a free country. Gay guy goes into a party, and the party is populated by Greek gods, and he sees all of these, the Greek gods. You have the god of strength. You got Hercules there, He's just looking around the room, and he's seeing all these Greek gods, and he sees the one fantastic looking one. And he goes across the room in front of the god and says to him, "Oh my goodness, you are so good looking. And what is your name?" And the god looks at him and says, "I'm Thor." And the gay guy says, "You're Thor? I just spent an hour with Zeus."
Dropping the hammer.
I know.
More like dropping the soap.
Laugh about this, folks. Oh,
yeah, we just can't have this kind of comedy on a university. You'll instantly be arrested.
Oh, I mean, the fact of the matter is yours is better. Derek.
Your people.
Tell us your anecdote.
Well, before we started, I got on late. I was gonna tell you. So I work, like in a place where there's a lot of people in and out, and one of the ladies is like, she knows about sports. I wouldn't say she's knowledgeable. She just kind of has an idea, you know what I mean? So she knows that, of course I like talking about sports, and that's, what I want to do as a career, sports media. So a lot of times she'll come in and try to have conversations about it, So she comes in today and she goes, Yeah, I found a new a broadcaster or commentator that I like. She goes, "Yeah, I love him. I was listening to him today, and I pretty much agreed with everything he said." And I go, "Oh, cool. Who'd you find?" Colin Cowherd.
No.
She goes, because she's seen my face. She goes, "Why? What's wrong?" I said, um. I said, I don't really like Colin Cowherd. She goes, well, why? I said, well, first of all, what he does is he picks a fan base that he knows is passionate either way, number one. And he decides, well, what's the narrative I'm going to push? So he uses that to get viewership. Either he goes too hot or too far positive or too far negative, and that's how he gets clicks. My point to her was, what he's saying to you is all BS. It's not what he actually thinks. It's what he wants to get clicks. And you know what she did? She looked at me and said, "You're ridiculous," and stormed out.
Well, but look, here's the truth, and you're telling the truth. I mean, an act today to get through the clutter is really to stand out by having something unique, which is, in this case, yelling fire in a crowded theater. I mean, let's be honest about this. The reason that Tucker Carlson is the #1 rated show on Fox Network, and as far as the late night ratings wars, is because he is over the top. And that's what people want. He is like the extension of Rush Limbaugh. He's like Rush Limbaugh's crazy son. But that's what people want. And that's what delivers ratings. And that's what brings advertisers to the table. This is the way it is. And I don't, and I will watch a brief, just the beginning of, his monologue. And I consider it a monologue because he has writers who write this stuff for him and he delivers it. And that is what we have today, is they're actors, they're performers. Do they really know a hell of a lot? No, but they play a character and pretty soon they become that character. And Rush Limbaugh had at least 5 identities before he hit on the winner.
But that's I don't know if that was necessarily funny. I just thought it was funny that she walked in, tried to impress me, and then got so mad that she stormed off because I said that Colin Cowherd was not good. Yeah. I thought that was hilarious because I texted because my best friend's a Steelers fan, and Colin Cowherd was talking trash about Steelers too. So obviously now we have that common, enemy. So I told him, I said, "You're not gonna believe what happened," and I told him the story. He's like, "Man, these people are crazy."
They like who they like, and they believe what the person says, and it is the cult of personality. That's kind of the way it is. The Browns, by the way, Mac Wilson hip and Wyatt Teller calf listed as questionable. Teller is Thor, and Mac Wilson has a hip issue. They both practiced, and we expect that they're going to get snaps come Sunday. Before I forget, the weather is for 45 degrees and 100% chance of rain. Going to have a wet ball, but we're not going to have a heavy wind. According about 10 miles an hour is what I've been reading through the day. The projected Sunday temperature at game time will be around 45 degrees. So
well, that's not too bad. I mean, that's better than the tsunami we've had the last 2 games.
Now, here's the other part of the end of the spectrum. The Eagles' offense has gotten healthy. All right. A lot of people are saying the Eagles are a lousy football team, and everybody in that division is not playing particularly good football. Carson Wentz is coming off by his.
But again, this is a team that really took the Pittsburgh Steelers deep into the 4th quarter.
Yes, I mean, again,
they're capable of being good.
Well, I mean, he played a pretty good game by his standards, 2020 standards, and they lost by 10 points to the Giants. So it's a head scratcher. But here's the problem: Zach Ertz and wide receiver Alshon Jeffrey, who have played in just 7 combined games this season. He saw the field. Jeffrey, for the first time last week, didn't catch a pass. Ertz was designated to return from injured reserve Monday, and he could be available for the first time in more than a month. And Zach Ertz is an important target for Carson Wentz because, that tight end over the middle is something the Browns have had a hellish time trying to cover. Meanwhile, their running back, Miles Sanders, missed 3 games due to injury, but he's been averaging 6 yards per carry. And when we look, again, I like to examine statistics, and it's not because I'm Mr. Analytical Guy, but it's because it does say something. Carson Wentz has completed 58.2% of his passes, which is not great. He's thrown for 2,091 yards, or about 255 yards per game. His longest pass, 59 yards. The thing that shows up here, 12 touchdowns, 12 picks, and 35 sacks, and an overall quarterback rating of 73.1. Not exactly the stuff that people expected out of Carson Wentz with the great beginning he had in his rookie year. The running game isn't bad statistically. Miles Sanders, in the 6 games that he's played, has rushed for 519 yards, a 6-yard average, and a long of 74. He can break the big game.
They've got a decent pass catching running back too. Boston Scott. Sorry.
Right, Boston Scott averages 4.8 yards per carry with a long of 56. So these guys can get it done. And Wentz has run for a 5-yard average, and he can still get out of the pocket, although they're not real high on that these days. On the receiving end, you've got Travis Fulgham, who averages 14.8 yards per catch. He has 30 receptions on 49 targets, which is about the percentage of passes that Carson Wentz completes. Ward has 37 receptions out of 51 targets, but only 7.6 yards per catch. The tight ends, which, we haven't seen as much of Zach Ertz. Ertz has only averaged 7.4 yards per catch. The other tight ends are averaging between 10 and 13 yards per catch. But to put it in perspective this year, you look at 30 receptions for Fulgham, 37 for Ward, but you go to the tight end position, we're talking about 61 receptions from the tight ends so far this year. So, this is where Carson Wentz is going to go when he needs to move the chains. Defensively speaking, they're a sack monster. 31 sacks they've accumulated, and they have some people, Fletcher Cox and Derek Barnett, who are 3.5 and 4.5 sacks each. You got Malik Jackson and Javon Hargrave with 1.5 sacks each. An old friend of ours, Jannard Avery, has 1.5 sacks, and he hasn't played that much, but he's a situational pass rusher. But 31 sacks is great news, except when your quarterback is sacked 35 times.
Isn't Barnett on the COVID list?
That's entirely possible.
I thought I seen that. I'm not for sure.
Maybe somebody in the chat room kind of check that out for us. As far as place kicking, 9 of 13 for Jake Elliott. That's not very many field goal attempts. That's only 69%. They could be better there. From a punting perspective, an average punt of 50 yards from Cameron Johnston with a net of 43.5. That's a damn good punter.
Yeah, he's from Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, he's putting up numbers. So those are the tangible statistics, and what the Browns are running into is a team that is getting at least healthier. The real question is how beaten down are they emotionally? Wentz was 27 touchdowns and 7 picks last year, and this year it's just not been good. And it's like finding ways to lose. and it's all about getting takeaways for the Browns. The Browns
but
are
they've had a lot. They've been decimated on injuries with the wide receivers too.
Yes.
So he hasn't had Alshon Jeffries for much of the year, or
Right.
I can't think of the other guy.
But Alshon
And Deshaun Jackson hasn't
Rager.
produced anything.
Jalen
No.
Rager, the rookie.
Yeah, Deshaun Jackson really is not hardly even shown up there. The Browns are 5-1 in games in which they get at least one takeaway. And again, when you're facing a guy who's 12 touchdowns and 12 picks, he'll put the ball up in the air. The question is your secondary going to be in the neighborhood of where he puts it up in the air?
Did you see Ronnie Harrison's ranked 9th as far as safeties this year in PFF ranking?
Yeah, I mean, I think that he's done a really good job, and it's kind of hard to say whether it's just because the other guys are just so horrible. But yeah, there's no, if Sheldon Redwine were anything whatsoever, we wouldn't have to put up with Sendejo. Now, Sendejo is playing fewer snaps these days, and Sheldon Redwine played more snaps, but he's not distinguishing himself. As much speed and athleticism as Redwine has, he's not in the right place at the right time. I think for no other reason, because of speed and athleticism, they need to have him on the field and not Sendejo. I mean, if they're going to make mistakes, at least let's have somebody who can run somebody down and kind of tackle somebody before they get into the end zone. Sendejo, once he's beat, is beat. Another worrisome thing for the Cleveland Browns is that, Cody Parkey is on the reserve COVID list, remain there on Thursday. He could return Saturday, but that is not a given. Matt Mccrain is the Browns practice squad kicker. He's handled the kicking duties at practice, and he is not what I would consider to be a happy time. He hasn't kicked in a game since 2018 when he went 8 for 12. That's only 67% while playing for 3 different teams. He joined the Browns roster on week 2 after the team waived Austin Seibert, whatever his name was, and signed Parkey off of the practice squad. So Parkey has been very good for us. He's 11 of 12 with 6 makes from 40 yards or longer, 23 of 24 on extra points, and he's not made the mistakes that Seibert made. But Mccrain, on a wet day and a wet track, that could be a real problem for the Cleveland Browns as well. So there's a lot of things. Say what?
Said it's a good thing we got Kareem Hunt.
It's a good thing we have 2 running backs.
No, you didn't get my joke.
What was your
joke? Think about it. Kicking, Kareem Hunt. Think about it. You'll get it.
How he kicked that woman in the hallway move.
Oh. That's right up with Thor. That's inappropriate.
Catch me up on something, because admittedly I've had to, make the decision for my mom to put down her dog today, and I don't know the news left from right. I missed the show. What's this? Myles Garrett's out?
Yeah, with COVID. Yep, the sickness that he had was in fact flu. It was COVID-19 flu. And so he's out for this week and possibly the Jaguar game next week. Yep.
Yeah, it's a 10-day minimum protocol.
Yeah.
That changes things.
It certainly does. It's a big change. And I'm sorry to hear about the dog, Tony. That's never a fun decision for anyone to have to make. And
12 years. Kidney
I left you a message on Twitter.
Thanks, Brian. Yeah, it's been hell. I've had to put down 3 dogs. I lost my uncle at 45 and a grandmother in a span of 2 months.
Jeez.
Hell hath no fury in my life, I guess.
Yeah. But what's shaping up Sunday is a real trap game for the Browns because things are conspiring. The players are coming back to Philadelphia more healthy. They have a quarterback who on paper is not doing well, but we know has done better, was much better last year, and has had a big rookie season as well. And
the Browns are now going to virtually have no pass rush.
Yeah, I mean, so this has the makings of a trap game, and this is another gut check that the Browns are going to have to get something from people like Porter Gustin or from Claiborne or the rotation that they use at defensive end. If they put Sheldon Richardson at the defensive end slot, this is people are going to have to earn their paycheck is what it amounts to. And it is worrisome, let's put it that way, because Wentz is a quarterback who can put up points. And with our defense and no pass rush, it could be a serious problem for the Browns. So you have that. I saw kind of an interesting article asking the question, who could break out during the second half of the season for the Browns? And Greedy Williams, that name came and went because there's just no update on him whatsoever. He just is just not getting better, I guess. It's I don't get it. Why they didn't just put him on end the season. If they're thinking that 1 week he's just going to wake up, the pain's going to be gone.
I don't like the fact that going back to the early part of the season, he came on Instagram Live. I think I've said this before, and he told not everybody, but told us, who follows him, yeah, I'm feeling good. I should be good to go by Washington. And it's like, okay, well, either you lied and you knew about it, or you really did think you would be back and they aren't letting you back. He's working hard. He's doing everything he's supposed to do, but I don't know. Good news. Just real quick. I did see Grant Delpit posted some rehab videos, and I did see he was on a treadmill and seemed to look fine as far as his progress. So that is a good sign.
Yeah, I mean, we're going to have to get something out of that guy because we just don't have the ability to draft our way out of this secondary hole. We got to, somebody like Ronnie Harrison needs to step up like he has, and then Delpit has to become something if we're going to have anything to build around in the defensive secondary. So Harrison is the guy who's flashing right now, but when they're asking, who could be the player who really steps out, and a week like, a game like this week, a guy like Ogunjobi could make a big difference to the team, but he's just not been visible this year. They're saying Jedrick Wills might be a guy who really steps it up in the second half. I think he's been very steady as the year has gone on. And I think what you see is what you get. This is a guy who, this is a very hard thing. I don't think people realize the difference between playing right tackle and left tackle in the NFL. It is a serious undertaking to change a guy's entire perspective of everything. It's like, look,
I had to play in high school. I had to switch from right to left side. I kind of play tackle and guard, and I'm not saying it's anywhere close to playing in the NFL. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying the little stuff like your technique, your hand placement, and all that stuff changes when you switch. And it's not like it just, you don't learn it at a snap of a finger. It takes a lot of time to get your routine down.
Yeah, and honestly, the Browns must think the world of Jedrick Wills because you draft a guy high and then you tell him, oh, you're going to be the left tackle when he played right tackle during his college career. You think highly of him. And
that's why they got Callahan.
Yeah, and the reason they drafted Jedrick Wills is that He quietly does his job. He learns, and he's like a sponge. He's gutting it out. And he's a big, strong, mauling kind of guy. And having Callahan is going to help him with technique considerably. The other guy who we're hoping we see some flashes from would be Jacob Phillips, who hasn't played in a game since week 5. He's had this knee injury that's just dragged on and on and on. And he's got some speed, and we've had nothing at linebacker that's helped us this year. So the whole second half of the season, if Jacob Phillips can stay healthy, he's going to see a lot of snaps.
And I think when he's been on the field, I don't mean to cut you off. I'm sorry, but
go ahead.
I think when he's been on the field, I've actually been pretty impressed with him as a what was he? 3rd round pick, 4th round pick?
He's got a lot of speed, and I think that he's got a lot to learn about the line he takes toward plays, reading, off of the snap, and really,
he's a good tackler. Good.
Yeah,
tackler.
I mean, there are basics there. There are definitely, the nuts and bolts are there, but I want to see him play every game in the second half of the season to see what we have moving forward, to at least see if we have somebody who can really participate. Harrison Bryant, I think, has been just fine this year. He's done everything that was asked of him. He blocks. He's been catching the ball. One turnover that could have happened to anybody, and he's done well. Do I think he's going to flash? Not as long as Austin Hooper's on the field. Harrison Bryant, will get opportunities as the second tight end. But in a lot of those schemes, he's going to be blocking, not really primary receiver kind of material. So with all of this in mind, as we move toward the game, let's start with Derek. Your pick of the Browns game, what do you think is going to happen Sunday?
I think the Browns will win. I've seen a lot of people talking about the quarterbacks, because that's the first thing everybody loves to talk about is quarterbacks. I think this game, just because of the conditions, I think it's going to be one of these run heavy games. And, as good as the Eagles running backs are, I like Miles Sanders, but I think that 2-headed monster, you don't need to pass a lot. 3rd down, 3rd and medium, that's when you need to pass. So I think the Browns have kind of become accustomed to this now, being the fact that this will be the 3rd game of these conditions. So I think the Browns win. I'm going to say 24-17.
All right. And Brian, we'll go to you.
With the COVID detractions, and I haven't seen anything where Parkey and the other guys are going to be back. I'm going to pick the Eaglets in a 16-9 game.
All right. Ron, thanks for your contribution. As for me, first I look around at what the other so-called experts are saying, and really, so that the Browns have a 51.9% FPI prediction to win the football game, and that's only by an average of 0.7 points. So for a lot of people's feelings, this game could go either way on a coin flip. McManus has picked the Browns 30-20, but Trotter has picked the Browns 12-9. When you start looking at what people are picking around the league on NFL.com, the Browns 24-22. These are the types of predictions that tell me that, it's like every other game that we've been involved in this year. And we'll bring Tony back in here. Tony,
I switched to my laptop from my car. So.
Oh, good. Why don't you give us your pick for the Browns game before I give mine?
Well, I was going to say 24-17 Browns, but Myles Garrett changes the fucking game significantly. Without a pass rush, I think the Eagles are going to win 28-17.
You picked who?
The Eagles.
By a score of 28-17?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Hey, Chad, how you doing, buddy? Hey, we both smoked a meatloaf. And I saw your pictures. I don't know if you saw my pictures.
Chad smoked
I
more
thought
than
that
just
was
the
going a
meatloaf.
different way.
Yeah, that's the difference. But actually on Thanksgiving, I'm going to be smoking a turkey, which is really going to be a hell of a big spliff. I don't know how I'm going to do that. But be that as it may, it's good seeing you, Chad. So I'm looking at this and I'm saying, gosh, I don't think that the Browns are necessarily going to have trouble scoring points against the Eagles. I think that the Browns are going to have trouble stopping the Eagles from getting into the end zone. And that is my concern, minus a pass rush. Now, somebody might step up, but I'm picking the Eagles in a disgusting upset, 27-20. I think that the Browns need to prove that they're not just one guy, but the statistics show that only one guy rushes the passer on this team. And, and if the Browns are forced to bring blitzes in order to get pressure on Wentz, then you're leaving your safeties and your defensive backs on islands against their receivers. So that's a problem. From the Browns' perspective, the way the Browns could win the football game is no turnovers. Baker's got to be concise. Whatever they've been working on as far as altering the game play, the play calling to Baker's strengths, in this weather that we're going to have Sunday should be more evident. A more structured, short passing game that moves the chains, get our running game going, and tire this team down. The other thing that they can do is to beat on them quick, because the Eagles, if they see that things are going badly, might just cave. It's that bad over there. It's been a season where it just hasn't really panned out. If the Browns allow them into the game early and can't stop Wentz, and Wentz starts getting a rhythm, then there's the problem. So, I hope that the Browns get on top of them and can get an early turnover to prevent what I think is going to happen. And at any point, at any rate, Crumbly Q is saying no Marty ball. And, I don't consider it Marty ball. I think that we have a quarterback who, if you leave him in the pocket, we found this out last year, and just to have him whipping the ball downfield, he makes a ton of errors. And I think that it's no rap on Baker Mayfield, but running freelance patterns and trying to develop chemistry with, OBJ didn't work. And I think he needs to be coached. He needs to be coached up. And I think a lot of times these first-round picks, people just think that they're just going to pop right out and become Ben Roethlisberger, but he didn't have Pittsburgh's front line then. Now he's got a better offensive line.
Well, he also come on. He had Bettis too.
Yeah, right. I mean,
he had a fantastic running game. He didn't have to pass the ball 55 times for them to win.
And today's game is such a different thing. I mean, watching the Cardinals lose last night.
Yeah, that was disgusting.
Yeah, but a close game, and it's the second close game between those teams. But, I wake up to see that I thought this was kind of a goofy story. I don't know if you heard this one, but Kyler Murray is trying to trademark the Hail Murray. And, he's filed an application with the Patent and Trademark Office to trademark Hail Murray.
That is funny.
It is funny, but you got to win.
Probably sell a lot of merch.
If I were a fan of the Cardinals, I'd take the win over the Seahawks before I'd worry about the trademark. But things are different. And like I said, when you're a top pick quarterback, sometimes you kind of kid glove them. And I think these quarterbacks need a firm hand to show them how to play the professional game. And I think that Baker Mayfield started out on cloud nine. It wasn't real. It wasn't sustainable. And then the crash comes. And now he's starting over, learning a system. And I want to see a game called in decent weather that will take advantage of his strengths and give him more confidence moving into the really critical part of the season. Again, we should beat the Eagles. I'm not saying that I want us to lose. I have to make a pick. And based on all the things that are happening, I see the advantage has slid over to the Philadelphia side. There are things the Browns can do, but they have to play to their quarterback strength. So no turnovers, and they got to just do what they did in the fourth quarter. You got to just plow through them and just beat them up. You got to do to them what the Raiders did to us and just make them feel like they're inadequate.
And what they did last week.
Yeah, I mean, you just beat up on people. That's the way you get it done. So,
hey, before we wrap this up, what did you think of fifth pick in the draft for the Cavs?
Stole my thunder, Derek.
Yeah. There's nobody. I mean, if LaMelo Ball goes 3, right, and the Knicks went, 8 with the guy who was supposed to be, higher up.
Obi Toppin.
Yeah, right. And and then I'm looking at the Cavs. The Cavs tried to trade this. Make no doubt. Have no doubt that they were trying to do a deal, but there wasn't the return value, because you look at these people who are being picked from, and there will always be one or two that will turn out to be much better players than you ever thought they'd be. But for every one of those, there's the rest of them who just turn out to be people who don't make it in the league. And it's a unique skill set, today's NBA. This guy, the reason the Cavaliers got him was because he's a defensive guy. This is what they call the Jimmy Butler formula, that you come into the league as a defensive stopper, and hopefully you have the athleticism to be able to pick up the nuances of the NBA game. This guy shoots less than 67% from the free throw line, and he has no three-point shot, so he can't stretch a floor. And he's a guy who's capable of guarding, theoretically, 1 through 4, depending on who's on the floor with him at one time. But he's the kind of guy that you would want to build some defense around if you already had this established offense. The Cavaliers, unfortunately, don't have enough, and they're going to have a lot less. Kevin Porter Jr., I don't know if you're watching this play out. What started out with a car accident, and then there was marijuana in the car, then there was a gun in the car, and now there's been reports that he punched a woman back in August. And Kevin Porter Jr. has been trouble since coming out of school. And, this talent is one thing, but he's going to play his way off of the Cleveland Cavaliers. And he'll get a second chance and play his way off with that team too, because he's got talent. But and he is talented. Make no mistake about it. But the Cavaliers can't play a lick of defense. I mean, you've got Colin Sexton, who can't play a lick of defense. You've got, the whole team. Kevin Love, really, except for one stop in an important critical moment, really is not a defensive force and can't move his feet. Garland is not a guy who is a defensive player. And, so this guy is going to be coming off the bench, theoretically. He's, a guy who in critical situations is hopefully somewhat of a lockdown guy, but he's never faced NBA talent really like this.
But it seems like at least now the Cavs are starting to get somewhere building a young core. You can argue over if it's a good young core, but at least they are starting to have some kind of structure of that young core.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's a sensible pick, and which is more than we can say in a lot of instances. Like when you make a pick like Anthony Bennett, um, you're trying desperately to trade. I don't know if you read that story, but now the story's out that the Cavaliers, in their war room, in essence, were trying to make a deal, to peddle the one pick, and somebody contacted one of the people in the Cavs organization at the time and said, well, so who are you going with at number, with the one pick? And they said, we don't know. And it was 3 minutes before the pick was made. So, yeah, that's the kind of thing that you had to deal with. And this is a sensible pick. But the thing is that the sky isn't the limit for this guy. You're expecting him to come into the league with defensive skills and hope that he develops something else around that. And, Jimmy Butler is a guy that Tony can talk about, Jimmy Butler. And, when he came into the league, he wasn't going to shoot the ball, and he became a very good scorer. So,
funny story you mentioned about the Cavs, with that same basically played out the other night for my team. We didn't know whether we were going to go LaMelo Ball, James Wiseman, and the fucking GM admitted it on the radio this morning. We didn't know whether we were going to go Edwards, LaMelo Ball, or James Wiseman number one. And then, granted, my erection still hasn't died down for the trade, but all of a sudden Oklahoma City called us for the Ricky Rubio trade with fucking a minute and a half left on the clock. And then all of a sudden, like, okay, we're going to take Edwards because we got our passing guard now. So it's crazy.
Yeah. So what did you get in the trade, and what did you give up?
We essentially gave up number 17, and we got Ricky Rubio, number 25, and number 28.
So Rubio is back in Minnesota?
Yes. Yep.
And why is that good?
Because they want Towns can score, Russell can score. They don't see Russell as much as a ball handler per se, as a off the ball shooter. And so they want then they're planning to, we're going to be a transition offense. So they're planning to have Rubio as the point guard to be kind of the quarterback of the whole situation with, Edwards cutting to the back of the basket and Towns and, Russell being out on the wings.
Yeah. I mean, the thing is, Rubio isn't as quick as he was when he played with you the first time around, and he can't shoot still. So, I mean, again,
he's gotten better, but he's still not your knockdown.
Right. And in order to get, you need a point guard if you're going to play, the drive and kick thing. If you're a guy like Russell, you want to get the ball in his hand. He's more of a, fade behind the line kind of guy. You got to have somebody who can get into the paint and who is a threat to finish.
Yeah, and Wiseman going to the Warriors should be criminal. I mean, how do they end up with a guy like that? That is
the number 2 pick, man. I mean, that's what happens when you lose Curry to an ACL. Fucking Thompson was an ACL, now he's an Achilles, and then all they had was Draymond and fucking Omari Spellman or whatever the fuck.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about a swift fall from grace. I mean, these are the things that make the NBA such a bizarre league. I mean, the NFL, you can keep some of your goodness for a period of time. But, man, when things go cold in the NBA, they go cold. I mean, people were talking about, the Warriors are going to be the next, Celtics dynasty. And, man, the Klay Thompson thing is just really unfortunate. But, again, we've seen this a million times before. The compensatory injuries that follow other injuries. And, you're coming back from an ACL. And, if your balance isn't the same, if your takeoff points aren't the same, if your musculature isn't symmetrical like it was, you start out with calf pain that ends up, a tear in your Achilles tendon. And we've seen this with other players before. And that's just devastating for the organization. And it's just another indication and an illustration in the league that, nobody stays on top forever. It was the other story was that Anthony Davis is going to wait before he commits to the Lakers. It's like, you dumb schmuck. You can say you're going to wait, but you could get hit by a car. You sign the goddamn deal because the Lakers are the Lakers now, and LeBron ain't going to be with you forever. You take advantage of now in the NBA because there really is no dynasty, 8-10-year dynasty teams. It just doesn't work out that way.
Well, and Anthony Davis on the Lakers, he, once LeBron's time is up, I mean, go to the Lakers and play with AD. That's an attractive spot. If I'm one of these guys who's going to be a free agent, When
is LeBron out of LA?
I think his contract's up in 2 years.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, it,
and a 4-year, 153. Jesus Christ, 153 million. Oh, that's a lot of.
Yeah.
Hold on. He signed that in 2018 offseason, so he is a UFA in 2022.
Yeah. But at that point, who knows what might happen to him? He's got a lot of mileage on him, but
technically he's got a player option for 41 million. Jesus Christ, next year.
Yeah. But if I were Anthony Davis, without LeBron James, Anthony Davis don't win a title. All right. And but so many people can say that. Kevin Love could say that, Yeah, I mean, it's it seems like it's a potent mix, and AD plays well with LeBron, and the two of them have different unique skills. So, but I haven't even hardly been following the NBA, quite honestly. It's like,
I didn't watch any of the bubble either. That was so stupid.
And I really
just weird
that there is a huge possibility that the NFL season is going to be disrupted by the virus. I mean, I'm not hoping that. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying that it's out there and alive and kicking, and we're seeing large increases here in Florida, as you all are in various parts of the country and the world. And it's affecting more and more NFL football teams. And the fact that now they're saying, well, we're going into much more of an ultimate lockdown in the NFL. You should have been doing that in the first place like the NBA did. There's no reason to believe that you could go through 17 weeks without having major problems. And I think the tip of the iceberg right now. And it's a potentially very scary thing.
There's supposedly the government is meeting with Pfizer next week to discuss emergency usages of the vaccine.
And maybe I'm a skeptic in all of this, but there were two. There was, of course, we heard first from Pfizer, who originally claimed that their original testing was 90% positive on that. And then when Moderna came out and said ours is 94.5, suddenly Pfizer said 95. We're 95. And I'm kind of like, stock market. We need another bump. I'm not sure, but what choice do you have? That's negative 75 degrees Celsius. Am I reading all of this stuff correct, that you have to store that shit at?
That's the Pfizer one. The other one, the Moderna, came out and said that you don't have to store it as cold.
Right. And that was the reason why they got their bump in the stock market. But again, I hope whatever it is that it works. But they're saying 20 million is how many dosages would be available.
Which you'd have to assume that, unless tyrannical governors are frontline people and the fucking long-term care facilities.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean,
What-
unless you have no soul whatsoever, that's correct.
It ain't gonna be fucking Mr. Moohead fucking walking down the street.
No. And
What's the? Go ahead.
No, go ahead, Derek.
What's the number? And I don't mean this in any way. I'm literally asking. What's the official number that would require herd immunity for a virus?
70% is of the population would have to contract the disease in order to, if that were the case, if that was in fact what would happen for that to happen. And we're nowhere near 70%. And that's the thing that it lost Trump the White House, regardless of all the shenanigans that are going on both sides. What lost him the election is that a lack of understanding. I mean, you take a look at how many people have had this.
So, but
you don't have exact numbers, but it hasn't been 70% of the population. So,
but this is my question: is so 70%? So that would mean whoever's already had it, and then the remaining percentage would have to be people who take the vaccine, correct, to get herd immunity?
yeah, what they're, if you're to be successful, 70%, what they were saying is if 50% of the population took the vaccine and it was effective, that would wipe COVID out so that the doubters could still get on board later. Okay. So half of the country has to agree to take this vaccine if it's proven, efficacious. And
doubters, by doubters, you mean people who are skeptical of the vaccine? Is that what you're saying?
Sure. And there are a lot of people who are. A lot of people, according to polling, says that
you're going to be able to see a lot of people who are going to refuse to take the vaccine, which is completely fucking stupid in my mind.
Yeah, it's crazy.
But they'll grow a horn on their head or something.
If 50% do, and it's as effective as what Pfizer is suggesting, that will wipe out COVID and will then the other 50% can get on board.
At least this variation of it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
And don't you think it should go from, like, if you're distributing this, don't you think it should go from highest risk first?
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Senior citizens and long-term care facilities at first, and if not, then all these politicians and people who make decisions need to be fucking shot.
Well, CO Debt is asking me, can I explain why a complete lockdown is somehow better than just isolating distancing? There can be no complete lockdown. President-elect Biden said there will be no complete lockdown.
Well, he's not officially president-elect yet.
No, but he is going to be the president of the United States. I mean, all this other
most likely, but it's not official.
Well, it's only not official because you got a guy.
The electors haven't voted yet.
Certification.
They're going to vote in the middle of December, like they do every presidential election.
And he's trying to get them.
And at that point,
he's trying to get their allegiance without the votes. All right, that's what he's contacting these people, trying to sway them. Yeah. That is the only last hope, because from a legal perspective, it's all gone down the crapper. I can guarantee you this before I answer your question, CO Dead. I've been around the block in the same climates, and I'm of an age close enough to Donald Trump to have seen how he does business. And if those people who are his followers believe that he believes he's going to be the president again and he's going to stay in the White House, you don't know Donald Trump. Donald Trump does what he's doing with litigation in order to gain a foothold someplace else. Saw him do it over and over with banks, and he was masterful at it. He would get banks investing into him, and then when it was Chapter 11 time, he would leave them holding the shingles.
But can I explain myself though, quick, why I said that?
Sure.
I had. And the only reason why, I don't care. Whoever wins, they're going to win. I mean, that's just how it is. You can't change it. You can't really do anything about it. Who's ever going to be president will be president. But my problem is I have people coming in talking to me at work saying, hey, did you see this? They said this. They said that. My only problem is I feel that it's dangerous. Now, I'm not saying Trump's going to win. No, let me be clear. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But listen to what I'm saying. If all these media sources are saying that Biden is currently president-elect, that's them projecting. That's not an official result. So what I'm saying is, let's say, it's 2020, craziness happens. Let's say somehow, that result gets changed. What's going to happen when, the people who don't really pay attention to politics says, well, wait a minute, you just told me this happened. How's come this changed? And then you're going to see people rioting, and you're not going to see trust.
But you're going to see rioting regardless.
Well, and what's unfortunate about this is you could have gone to any political election, presidential election for the past how many years and redone the vote, and the numbers would come out a little differently. There is a plus minus in this of human error factors, and it would have been true over the course of the last 40, 50 years. I mean, as we become more mechanized, there is a chance that there are things that can get messed up, just human error or programming errors or whatever. The issue here is not going to be whether Donald Trump is president or not. I honestly believe that he will be angling for something before he gets out of the road. In other words, he has become one gigantic pest to the Democrats right now. And in order to get, and all the other Republicans have been told, hold your shit, man. Don't cave in. Don't, keep strong. And I think what they're going to try to negotiate, or what Trump's going to negotiate, is something for himself, because that is the history of the man. And I believe rather than giving himself presidential pardons for things that he's done that he knows damn well were not exactly kosher, he is going to make sure that the people, in exchange for his complicity in turning things over to Biden, that he will get something in return. And this is just the traitor that he is. It's the business guy that he is. Go ahead.
My only concern is that hypothetical situation in which somehow through legal crap, I can't explain it, I'm not smart enough to explain it, what happens when you have, you go on Twitter and you say anything about the election, or not even the election, just anything, if you go on Twitter and you say, oh, I hate Trump, or I hate the president, whatever, which I don't think you should do about any president. But I think what's going to happen is you're going to see people, everybody keeps talking about civil war. I think there is literally a civil war going on right now. It's digitally, because we have two teams right now. It's not, there's no middle ground anymore. So it's team A and team B. And team A is going to believe team A, and team B is going to believe team B. So what happens, just like a football game, if there's a touchdown call and, us as Browns fans, oh, that's not a touchdown. And whoever, that's my only concern is they're saying that it's over, which you could say projection says, yes, it is over. I have no problem with you saying that. But as far as like an official result, that's not been certified yet. That's I don't mean to ramble. That's my
I want to explain to CO Dead before I get off the air here. I'm not in favor of a complete lockdown. I'm a believer in common sense. And I think people have to choose how they live their life. The unfortunate part of this is that it has become polarized like everything else. And that and of course it's better, distancing and some degree of isolation if you don't want to get the disease, and if you don't want to spread it to people that you live with.
And I think where Mark and I have the greatest divide is, to me, it should be personal choice, and he wants a government mandate.
Now wait. Now that it is impossible to do. What my frustration is,
I guess
my-
you never heard of Tim Walz or fucking Newsom
No, fucking don't get me started,
or
Ryan.
Whitmer.
well, but you see, it's not enforceable. The problem is common sense is not enforceable. I mean, I can't make every person who's morbidly obese lose 150 pounds. I can't just strike a mandate saying because it's better for your health, you're going to lose 150 pounds. It doesn't work that way. And
No,
you
well,
know,
but what their game plan is to, through regulation, gently nudge those people out of society, essentially.
Yeah, Minnesota's governor came out today and said if you have a Thanksgiving celebration with anybody outside of your household under the roof of your house, you are subject to 90 days jail and $100,000 fine.
I
I'm
really
like, fuck you.
well, I don't think that that's really an enforceable thing. The thing that really upsets me more than anything is that we're living in a time where we've made up a term conspiracy theory, and what they are lies. Okay. And it's been a series of them over and over again.
Well, in
And
most cases.
well, yeah, I mean, whether it's reptilians that are Democrats, but also reptilian who are molesting children, or if it's Bill Clinton and Pizzagate, or if it's birtherism, and I'm just pointing out from the right what we've heard for the past several years.
I don't know, Moot. Topaz has been telling me some of your secrets. I don't know what you're talking about there.
They're lies. Okay, conspiracy theories are if you can't acknowledge that you lost an election, you're lying. You may not like the result. You may be looking for possible explanations of how it could have happened, but you can come up with whoppers, but they're lies. And what bothers me is that people don't know what's good for themselves. I don't want the government to decide for them. It's just disappointing to see that people have just rejected science and refused to take common courtesy steps to protect others from the risk that they're willing to take themselves. And it is a sign of the society that we live in and the times we live in.
Okay, but see, we have a bunch of medical professionals that say masks are completely useless for preventing either the spread or the contraction of the disease. So if that's the case, you might as well just.
First of all, it was important for a group of people to say, well, the masks don't do any good. And then they proceed not to wear them, and look what's happened. You see, when 50% of the country just
But this could have happened either way.
When you defy common logic, you're going to end up with the result that we've had. Now, I've worn a mask from the beginning of this.
But this is the only disease in the history of mankind where we have literally shut down governments and we have shut down economies across the globe.
And I've told you that there is no way you can do a complete lockdown now because the thing is so far up our ass that, you're never going to just wipe it out cold. You got to keep chugging along now. And that's because of the decisions that have been made over the course of 2020. We have not handled this in a serious way. And, it's like a friend of mine, another one of my radio compadres, another one of my former program directors, has COVID, and he posted something that said, this ain't the cakewalk that a lot of people seem to be saying that it is. And he's a conservative. He's a Republican. He's got it. And it's not good. People have poo-pooed this like, most people don't even have symptoms. Well, it's a fucking lie. Again, there's a difference between facts and fiction. And, it doesn't affect people all the same way. But to sit there and to say, it's not that big a deal, so I can go and, into a crowded restaurant and do this. And then because my way as an American to do this out of freedom, and then I'm not
Okay, but by the same token, you wear the mask to come into the restaurant. You take the mask down. COVID-19 doesn't fucking take a goddamn coffee break while you eat your meal. It doesn't just,
Well, I don't go out to
magnetically
restaurants.
attracted to the plexiglass. No,
I
it's
don't
going to
go-
go up and over. It's going to go around as people are breathing and coughing and whatever, and and talking. They're going to create the plume regardless.
Well, I don't go out to restaurants. And the fact of the matter is, we've converted what used to be considered like throwing tea into a harbor and likening that to a right to go out to a fucking strip bar or a right to go out to a restaurant or a bar. We're fucked up, man. Our values are fucked up. People can live without going to a goddamn restaurant. It can be done. We've done it here since, my God, since this thing hit in January. We haven't gone out to a restaurant. You know something? I've been cooking and having a good old time. It isn't that difficult, and it isn't giving up that much. But you see, in the end, people aren't willing to give up anything, and they're pampered and they're spoiled, and they don't know.
But you'll have to understand that we also have a service-based industry economy.
Yeah,
so
but
having those restaurants, not having those people with a job means no taxes, and they're going to be on the fucking government dole. You're losing twice.
I'm not, but you keep going back to this. I'm not talking about lockdowns. I'm talking about using common sense when you're at work and when you're out of work. You see, these people who sit there and talk about, we gotta fight for our freedom. These people are fucking pussies. They can't even not go out to a goddamn restaurant. Give me a break. Give me a break. Where's the sacrifice coming from the public? Where is their sacrifice? And the answer is there is no sacrifice.
I would say almost 60 million people on fucking signing up for unemployment benefits is a pretty goddamn big sacrifice.
Well, the reason that they're forced to do that is because we handled this whole thing wrong. Had people put, you can't have it both ways and say, I'm a freedom fighter, but hell if I'm going to wear a mask. Fuck those people. You can't give up the littlest thing, man. It's a little inconvenience for you to put on a mask, maybe to protect somebody else. That's the problem.
It doesn't protect anybody else. That's the fucking problem. You're not running around in a goddamn bunny suit.
Yeah, well,
nobody is running around in a fucking hazmat grade 3 containment suit.
Nope.
So you are not doing anything to take the disease away from somebody else.
I haven't had the disease and I haven't given it to anyone.
Well, I haven't either.
And I hope you don't, man. I hope everybody doesn't. But I'm saying there are ways you can't guarantee it. I could end up positive next week if I'm in the grocery store at the wrong time in the wrong place. You bet. You bet. But I took it wasn't a matter of being capricious and just going out and partying, and having, there are a bunch of people up in Carolina where I used to live. They had a fucking Trump election party, and a bunch of them, 6 to 10 of them got COVID. I mean, I got to get out
99 out of 100 of them are going to be fine. So.
Yeah, everything's going to be fine. It's just going to go away. Thanks, everybody. Another lie. Thanks, everybody, for tuning into this edition of
No, we have good treatment plans.
Yeah, well, thank God that we're better at that. We could agree on that and toast to that because we have a better idea of how to handle this. And by handling it smarter medically, a lot of the risk amongst different factors of people has diminished. And that's a really good thing. So, but that comes from knowledge, facts, and science. All right. That's where that comes from. That doesn't come from, it's just going to go away. That comes from people on the front lines learning and unfortunately losing a bunch of people and then finding out, well, this was the wrong approach and finding the right approach. That's science. So at any rate, we're going to be back on Sunday at halftime and then after the game, and we'll have all the time in the world to talk about the Browns. And this is a subject that we're talking about now that you're not going to convince me. I'm not going to convince you. But the fact of the matter is, I just want to make sure that whatever it is, we're heading into 2021 with a better game plan that will knock this thing out so that we don't have to go through all of 2021 with the same shit. Nobody wants to see a repeat performance. Thanks, everybody, for tuning in. We'll be back again Sunday at halftime. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.
See y'all Sunday.
Hey.